300-pound dudes tackling you on a frozen field, the last thing you want to do is stay out there. Believe me, the Rams players were thinking about the jacuzzi at their team hotel, that they find it laughable, but more laughable if they totally disregard the trade whatsoever. This guy has transformed the balance of power in the Eastern Conference. And you could argue the entire defense is going to be absolutely ferocious next year. But if your number one priority is to win a Super Bowl, then J.J. Watt is making a grave mistake. To ride this Chad Henne experiment for an entire game, I might need a whole bottle of Hennessy just to get through that. Guy who's won 8 division titles, who's made 5 AFC championship appearances, who's reached the Super Bowl 3 times and has won 2 Super Bowls for this organization. Aaron Rodgers has only won 1 Super Bowl with Green Bay. Drew Brees has only won 1 Super Bowl with New Orleans. There's only 13 quarterbacks in NFL history that have won multiple Super Bowls, and Big Ben is one of those individuals. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe right here on J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on YouTube. I'm Jonah Malkin with you every single Monday and Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Glad you could join me on a Monday morning. A lot to get into, a huge finish and outcry in England after Italy won the Euro Championship. Lionel Messi finally claimed a Copa America for Argentina. Novak Djokovic wins his 6th Wimbledon title, 20th Grand Slam, and the USA men's national team loses to Nigeria? Really? I'm going to touch on that, but we start first with the NBA Finals. Last night, Game 3 between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns. The Bucks finally were able to exact some revenge and get into the win column, winning 120-100 over the Phoenix Suns, trimming the series deficit to 2-1. And as much concern as we've all had about the Milwaukee Bucks trailing 0-2, the reality is, and especially coming into this game, the reality is, this was a deficit that we knew that they were familiar with. This wasn't foreign to them. They trailed the Brooklyn Nets 0-2 in a couple series ago in the second round of the Eastern Conference, in the Eastern Conference semifinals. This is a Milwaukee Bucks team that is very used to trailing 0-2 series deficits this postseason. So nothing was surprising in terms of the fact that they would play confidently, their mindsets would be turning a new page, they'd feel refreshed. Nothing was surprising in that regard. What you got from Giannis Antetokounmpo yesterday, an absolute masterpiece, 41 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 13 of 17 from the free throw line. He was actually shooting it incredibly well from the free throw line. In fact, the broadcasters were trying to not downplay the significance of his free throws. He was 14 of 23 from the floor, 38 minutes. But this game felt very much like Game 2 against the Phoenix Suns back in Phoenix, when Giannis also went for 42 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists. The difference was, sure, he didn't shoot as well from the free throw line. That's a difference in this game. But the main difference was Giannis was the same productive, had provided the same production that he did in Game 2 yesterday. He just got the complimentary support from his teammates yesterday that he did not get in Game 2. Drew Holiday finally showed up, had a breakthrough game, 21 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds, and most importantly, he shot it efficiently. 8 for 14, 5 for 10 from the three-point line. He had a stretch in the third quarter where he scored 12 points in the third quarter, hit like 3 straight three-pointers to really kind of break the game open for the Bucks, which is what they weren't getting. Middleton chipped in 18 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. So you look at Game 2, okay, Giannis goes for the 40-point double-double. The only person along with LeBron James and Michael Jordan to do that in back-to-back finals games, and Shaquille O'Neal, rather, LeBron James and Shaquille O'Neal. So the only reason Why this outcome was different than game two was, okay, instead of Jrue Holiday going 7 for 21 in game two, and instead of Chris Middleton merely chipping in 11 points on 5 of 16 shooting in game two, he shot it efficiently, 6 of 14. Jrue Holiday, 8 of 14. And you combine that now, that help with what Giannis gives you, a 40 and 10, 2 straight games, yeah, you're going to win the game. And so I was just impressed with the fact that Giannis, again, this is not even 2 weeks removed from his hyperextended knee, and he's giving you the same kind of production, same kind of effort, same kind of intensity as he's been doing throughout the entire postseason, but that hasn't diminished his level of play at all. In fact, he's elevated his level of play in these finals. It's been extremely impressive to watch what he's been doing. And more importantly, Coach Mike Budenholzer finally made adjustments, not offensively, defensively. The biggest Achilles heel to the Milwaukee Bucks. 2 things. Their guard play and defending the guard play of the Phoenix Suns. Were they going to get production from Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton? And could they slow down Devin Booker and Chris Paul? Well, yesterday, they did a great job against those 2 guys. Obviously, Chris Paul still put up 19 points, but he was defended much more methodically. They weren't allowing him to probe as much. They weren't allowing him to call out different switches quite as effectively. They had personnel on the floor that could switch well. Then they bottled up Devin Booker, held him to 10 points on 3 of 14 shooting. He was clearly gassed, but a lot of that is to the Bucks' credit for hounding Devin Booker throughout the entire night. Monty Williams couldn't even play him the fourth quarter. That's how far the game was, and that's how far removed Devin Booker was from the activity that was going on. So they did a nice job locking in on him. The ball movement was better. Obviously, you got good production again from Pat Connaughton, 2 for 4 from the three-point line, 8 points. Bobby Portis, the Energizer Bunny, 11 points. Had a nice throwdown dunk as well. I love the energy that he's been coming in and providing. And so finally, we were starting to see Coach Budenholzer make some defensive adjustments. And that was the biggest question mark. Could they contain Devin Booker and Chris Paul? And could they find a way to unleash a bit more of Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton? Because it was almost perplexing how inefficient they were in the first 2 games and their inability to score in the first 2 games. So that was impressive to me. And then what I love most about this performance is not just Giannis Antetokounmpo's stat line. What I love the most is that Giannis, and one of the things that I appreciate about Giannis is as much as we criticize and we scold and we ridicule and we shred his inability to shoot from the perimeter, what I love is that he's got the backbone and the mental fortitude to not let that even discourage him at all from taking shots from the perimeter. He will still shoot from the outside, feeling confidently. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the pundits, what the media experts say, that he can't shoot from the perimeter. The fact that he's willing to try, willing to fail, willing to expose his flaws is what's extremely impressive. Why do we criticize Ben Simmons so much? It's not so much that Ben Simmons simply can't shoot the basketball. It's not simply the fact that Ben Simmons has an inability to score from beyond 5 feet. No, it's his inability to try. It's his unwillingness to even attempt a shot from outside the restrictive area. And sometimes, as we saw in Game 5 against the Hawks, he'll pass up a wide open dunk because he's a little bit timid, because he's refusing to shoot. Giannis isn't a good outside shooter. There's no question about it. But you can't claim that he's scared to try to shoot, that he's scared to attempt a shot from the outside. Because the bottom line is, sure, he shot 0 for 2 from the three-point line yesterday. Do I want him shooting a bunch of threes? No. Would I prefer that he operate closer to the rim on the block? Absolutely. But the bottom line is, even though he would be so much more efficient there, he would score so many more points, and it would come so much easier for him down on the block. Absolutely true. The fact of the matter is, he's unafraid to at least take the shot from the outside. Again, 0 for 2 from the three-point line, and you know what? I don't really care. We can't have it both ways. We can't tell a guy, hey, you can't shoot, so go work on your shot in the offseason, but don't try to apply it at all in the postseason. That's being hypocritical. We want the guy to work on his jump shot. He's working on his jump shot. Hasn't always manifested, but we can't just all of a sudden tell him, go away from it. That's how you build that backbone. That's how you develop that psychological edge that you can make these shots in the postseason, is by trying, by merely attempting shots. And that's the thing that I love the most about Giannis. And even from the free throw line, I don't care that he takes 10 to 12 to 15 seconds, that he's got his routine. The fact of the matter is, he's willing to try. He practices. He puts in the work. Sure, he's not the best shooter, but he's making attempts and making strides to be better. And that's something that you can always appreciate about someone. And speaking of things you can appreciate about others, did you watch UFC 264 on Saturday night? Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, round 3. Obviously, we know McGregor took the first meeting. Poirier took the second meeting just a couple months ago. And now this was the trilogy in Las Vegas, in T-Mobile Arena. And I've said this before. If you were to ask me about 5-6 years ago, if I was a UFC fan, I would have said, nope, not at all. Not really big into MMA. The one guy that changed my opinion, that got me glued, that got me hooked to UFC, was Conor McGregor. When he knocked out Jose Aldo in 2015 to claim the featherweight title championship, that's the moment when I just felt completely captivated by this Irish dude who has such a huge persona. He's got the bravado. He's got that gait. He's got that strut, that confidence, that showmanship, the way that he can entertain. I don't think I've ever witnessed an individual that not only is just as entertaining, but is the showman that Conor McGregor is. Because he's the reason why I watched that fight last night. Or a couple nights ago. No disrespect to Dustin Poirier, who is tactically a really, really solid UFC fighter, really an MMA fighter. He is a brilliant, brilliant fighter, a great fighter, no question about it. But the draw to me is Conor McGregor, and no one can sell a fight, whether it's selling a fight, whether it's selling a pre-game introductory press conference. No one sells it better than Conor McGregor. But if you remove all the showmanship and you unpeel the skill sets of both of these guys, Dustin Poirier was absolutely fantastic yesterday. He's a couple days ago. He's the real deal, Dustin Poirier. He's versatile with his jiu-jitsu background and his black belt. This guy can grapple. This guy can stand up and fight. He can take leg shots. And what I loved about him was the approach coming into this fight. Two very different approaches. You had Dustin Poirier that was much more relaxed, buttoned up, wasn't trying to get into the verbal confrontation and altercations. He was about being there to do his business, to do his job, stay locked in, and see where the chips fall. Where you had Conor McGregor, who actually looked very dialed in right from the beginning. He was very outspoken. His trash talking, of course, on point, as it always is. He's a provocateur, trying to provoke Dustin Poirier. And the thing is, one of the things that makes UFC special is the fact that once you get inside that cage, talking goes out the window. Show me, don't tell me. Actions speak louder than words. You can throw out all the trash talking because this is you versus me, mano a mano, inside the cage. And it's one of the few sports, obviously, just like any competition, you have athletes that are extremely competitive and want to win. But there's something about the UFC when you strip guys down to their core and you challenge them, where you've got guys that have legitimate vitriol and legitimate disdain for the guy that they're facing in there. Other sports claim they truly hate their opponents. UFC, you sometimes have matchups where you got guys that respect one another as fighters but want to knock each other out. Then you've got those UFC fights where you have two guys who don't respect each other at all. They literally want to rip their guts out. They want to eviscerate their opponent in public, and they want to send them on a stretcher. Now, some guys actually verbalize that, which is what Conor McGregor did, and others are kind of just more about being about it and seeing what happens. And so when the first minute of this fight, I got to be honest, Conor looked great. He was delivering leg kicks successfully. I thought that he was doing a nice job just attacking Dustin Poirier early. He wasn't allowing Poirier to get comfortable at any moment during the first minute of the fight, of the first round. And I thought he was doing a nice job. And then where the fight turned was once they started standing up boxing. Then all of a sudden, McGregor's no longer in the center of the ring and in the center of the octagon. Now you've got Dustin Poirier, who's starting to win this punching attack. He was starting to check some of Conor McGregor's slings, and all of a sudden, you've got Poirier pushing McGregor all the way to the fence, and now you're thinking that McGregor's kind of in trouble here, and that's when he had to resort to the guillotine choke to try and knock him out early and get him down on the ground. And credit to Dustin Poirier, most people might have had to have tapped out, and they would have surrendered that guillotine choke. And Dustin Poirier just remained calm, remained composed, found his footing against the fence, was able to get his legs higher up on the fence, which is a really smart strategy to avoid that guillotine choke that tries to bottle you completely in. And he was able to kind of get out of it. And there it turned into a ground and pound game where Dustin Poirier obviously has the advantage as the much better, much more skilled martial arts expert. He was starting to deliver blows to the head, to the ear of McGregor. Now, McGregor got a couple good elbow strikes in to Poirier as well. But it was really Poirier at that point. You just knew with his size, with the sheer size and weight, that he just was able to assert himself a bit more on the ground on McGregor. And then obviously when they got up, he checked one of McGregor's kicks, and the next step, McGregor ultimately breaks his leg, breaks his tibia. And so the schism between these two guys, the hostility, the animus between these two guys is real. And they didn't mince words before, during, or after the event. And that's part of the reason why this was such a big sell, why this was such a big draw, is precisely that. Is because people want to see two dudes who truly hate one another. And I don't think that could be said necessarily after the second fight, but in the lead up to this third fight, that's what we saw. And again, Conor looked dialed in. He looked like a man on a mission. And you've got Dustin Poirier, who's unfazed by the limelight, unfazed by the spotlight in the moment, and stayed locked in. And part of that was evident just by the lead-up songs that they had coming into the octagon. So, again, I thought that, there's no question, I thought Dustin Poirier looked like a better fighter. He's much more versatile. He's got a deeper skill set, deeper repertoire. He can go to more plans. He doesn't just have to resort to one plan. That's the thing about Dustin Poirier. He's not one-dimensional. And I think that he clearly looked like, hey, if something's not working, I can then transition to something else. McGregor looked like, hey, I've got one plan. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I'm going to go down swinging. And he went down swinging, unfortunately, or stepping down. So I will say this, that with that being said, with the fact that I think Dustin Poirier clearly showed he's the better fighter, I don't think that Conor McGregor is washed up. I don't think that he fought uninspired or unmotivated, or that he lacked the hunger necessary to be successful in a fight of this magnitude. I don't think he lacked that hunger at all, which is what other people were claiming. When you make $400 million, sometimes you lose that edge, that chip on your shoulder that Dustin Poirier hasn't experienced yet, so he can still summon up. But I didn't see that with Conor McGregor. I just saw a guy that was facing an opponent at the top of his game, who's much more versatile right now, who's gotten more experience in currently. He's had more run-in. He's had more fights leading up to this one. He looked like the sharper fighter. McGregor hasn't fought since fighting Poirier a couple months ago. And then prior to that, he hadn't fought for a couple years when he beat Cowboy Cerrone. And then it was Floyd Mayweather. And next thing you know, it's 2017, 4 years ago. So I just, the only thing was that it was such a disappointment that the fight ended so soon. It was such a shame that it ended so quickly in that fashion. At the end of the first round, I really felt like if McGregor could have gone it somehow, if he didn't break his leg and he could have gone it into the second round, I thought that his corner, they could have talked about some different tactics, because it was very entertaining. And to be honest, sure, I gave the edge to Poirier, but the scorecard would have been pretty competitive. I think that the scorecard would have reflected the competitiveness that was shown through the first 5 minutes. And it's a shame that we were deprived of more. And then it was only fitting that, of course, at the end of this, you had Dustin Poirier basically saying in a post-game interview, I wish I could have finished him with a proper 2, as a reference to his whiskey company, Proper Number 12. So I just thought, again, clearly there was no love lost. Clearly these guys have legitimate animosity towards one another. And in the fight game, that's kind of what you need. And that's kind of what you appreciate the most. Transitioning to tennis. Wimbledon Championships took place yesterday. Novak Djokovic and Matteo Berrettini. So Novak Djokovic won his 6th Wimbledon title yesterday, 20th Grand Slam title. He ties now Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal for the most all-time, most men's singles championships. He beat Matteo Berrettini in 4 sets. And once again, he loses the first set, even though he was up 4-1. Loses the first set in a 7-6 tiebreak and rattles off 3 straight. This feels like deja vu. It feels like I was just talking about this and the greatness of Novak Djokovic just a couple months ago at the French Open when he won. And to me, what makes this one so special, and to me what makes Wimbledon not only the most prestigious court, but the most difficult court to win on, the most difficult court surface to win on is because it's grass. It's the oldest Grand Slam to have ever existed. Started in 1877, Wimbledon, the oldest court. And when you play on grass, it's the most unusual because the speeds are so unpredictable. The speeds are so much faster on a grass court than they are on any other surface. Clay is obviously extremely unique, but the reason why I have grass a little bit more unique than clay is because clay is a hard court, but it's covered with a clay mixture that's poured over it. But the basis of it, the base, is a legitimate hard court. Grass is just grass. And it's amazing how these guys can judge the speeds of the ball, and a grass court favors the guys that can win points quickly, that are trying to win points quickly, which is why Berrettini played so well and had such a great tournament run, is because he's hitting serves at 136 miles an hour. His average speed on his forehands was 105, 106 miles per hour. And here you got Djokovic, the greatest versatile tennis player, you can say now, able to offset that with his consistency, with his strength, with his endurance, with his pliability. For Novak Djokovic, I don't think people totally realize what you're witnessing. I've said this before, that we're watching the greatest tennis players to have ever played the sport, not just this era, to have ever played the sport. We're looking at three guys, and really four if you throw in Venus Williams. And by the way, when we refer to Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic as the big three, we're actually selling their greatness short. They are not a big three. They are a Goliath three. They are a behemoth three, because these guys have won 60 Grand Slams between the three of them. And if you throw in Serena Williams, who would make them a gargantuan four, she's got 23 women's singles championships, 83 Grand Slams between the four of those people. It's unbelievable. And when you look at the men's side, when Novak Djokovic, if you look back to when he first won a Grand Slam in 2008, was the first time he won a Grand Slam in 2008. From that win on, there have been 54 Grand Slam events played. Out of those 54 Grand Slam events, one member of that big three, of either Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, or Novak Djokovic, has won 45 of the 54 Grand Slam events, dating back to 2008, Djokovic's first win. That's unbelievable. And one of the only wins came last year in the U.S. Open, when Roger Federer didn't play, Rafael Nadal didn't play, and Djokovic turned around out of frustration and hit the ball so hard it actually hit a line judge in the throat, and he was disqualified. And so Dominic Thiem won his first and only Grand Slam at the U.S. Open last year. If you remove that, these guys have dominated the sport. And if you go back to 2017, no one else has won outside of what I just laid out. Dominic Thiem winning because Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal didn't play in the U.S. Open and Djokovic was disqualified. Since 2017, it's been just those three guys. It's unbelievable the type of consistency that we're seeing. And that's what's important is, again, now you've got Djokovic with a rare opportunity to do something that's only been done by two guys in the history of tennis, to actually and legitimately win a Grand Slam, meaning winning all four Grand Slam events in the same calendar year. It's only been done two other times. Don Budge did it in 1938, and then Rod Laver did it twice in 1962 and 1969. That was 52 years ago, the most recent example of that by Rod Laver, winning a Grand Slam. All 4 Grand Slam events in the same calendar year. Novak Djokovic won the Australian Open, then he just won the French, then he just won Wimbledon, and now the U.S. Open is coming up in New York and Flushing Meadows at the end of August, which I will be at with my dad, which I'm excited to go to. So what you're watching, what you're experiencing right now, it's incomprehensible, the talent disparity between these guys. It's absolutely sensational. And again, after Djokovic won his first Grand Slam in 2008, he didn't win in 2009, didn't win in 2010. In 2011, from 2011 on, Novak Djokovic has won at least one Grand Slam every single year since that time, if not multiple. This decade has been the Novak Djokovic decade. It's been unbelievable. 19 Grand Slams in this one decade alone for Novak Djokovic. 19, and he's on the precipice of now, to me, I think he's officially now, I can proclaim that he's officially surpassed Rafael Nadal in my rankings. And at this point, I've got him and Roger Federer exactly level, exactly even right now. I had Roger Federer with a slight edge prior to Wimbledon. After Wimbledon, they're exactly neck and neck. I can't give one edge to the other. I prefer Federer. He's my favorite player. He's the much more elegant player. The way that he was able to win, the beauty and the grace with which he played is unrivaled and unmatched. But when you look at the skill set, when you look at the talent and the versatility of Djokovic, his will to win is unlike anything we've ever seen. He's probably got the greatest will to win for a tennis player that I've ever seen. His ability to fight and show that toughness speaks volumes, and he's just one of the few guys that can muster up. He's one of those few guys where when you think he is down for the count, he gets up off the mat, and he just finds a way to dig deeper than the opponent. When the moment becomes more important, when the magnitude of the moment rises, he elevates his game. He's the greatest return of server I've ever seen. He's the most pliable, most flexible athlete in tennis I've ever seen. His ability, he gets to more shots than what seems like any other guy I've ever seen. His fitness is tremendous, and the guy is unbelievable. And he's just breaking history after breaking history, trailblazing his own path, and it's unbelievable to see. Again, right now, I've got him edged out over Rafael Nadal in that big three. And I've got him and Roger Federer at the very top, ranked the same. I can't even give Federer the edge anymore. I can't. So, huge performance by Novak Djokovic. Congratulations to him on winning Grand Slam number 20. That's unbelievable. 6th Wimbledon title. It's nothing short of spectacular. Transitioning to soccer, because there are also some historical moments yesterday and over the weekend. European Championship, Italy and England, 2 prominent nations facing off for the European Championship, and it was an all-time classic. Came down to a shootout, and Italy prevailed in the penalty kick, through penalty kicks, winning their first European Championship since 1968, the longest gap between titles ever for a nation. Between titles forever. Now, we know that they've obviously advanced past the group stage 7 times, and they've reached the finals at least 3 times in their history of the European Championship. And when we looked back at their last 3 European Championships, it was pretty remarkable. A quarterfinal appearance, then it was the runner-up and then the quarters again. And now this year, they win the whole thing. So they're adding to their total. Now they've got 2 European championships, Italy, and 4 World Cup titles. And it's absolutely sensational. The team played extremely well. But here's the interesting thing. It's so interesting how much difference a couple days can make for a soccer squad, because we just saw this Italy team seem to get really outplayed by Spain just a couple days ago in the semifinals. The possession arrow, the shots on goal, the shots on target, corner kicks, the advantage all went to Spain, yet it was Italy that scored on a quick counter, and they ultimately prevailed in PKs. And now the script was kind of flipped against England, because the first 2 minutes of the game, you have England now scoring. Luke Shaw scores on a cross through the box from Trippier, and he one-times it with his left foot within the first minute and 57 seconds of the game. That was the fastest goal ever in the European Championship. It was scored by England, and yet, despite that, you had Italy that dominated possession, 62%, dominated shots on goal and shots on target. The advantage went to Italy, 17 shots on goal for Italy, just 5 for England. 5 of those were shots on goal for Italy, and only 2 of them were on goal for England. And you looked at the pace of the play and the number of passes that were executed, and now the possession and the beauty and the grace, the control seemed to be with Italy. Yet you look up at the scoreboard, and until midway through the second half, England is the team that's up in front, because both defenses played extremely well and really didn't give their opponents many open looks. Every single shot was contested. Every single shot was challenged. And that's what was important, is the fact that, yes, these teams were getting these shots on goal, but what made England and Italy so unique, especially this tournament, especially England, was the defense. I mean, Gareth Southgate, I thought, did a really good job of managing this club, but it's just a shame, because for the game to have ended in the fashion that it did is just crushing. It's just heartbreaking if you're England. And this is not to take away anything from Italy. Major congratulations to them. But this game was played in England at Wembley Stadium for a nation that has never won the European Championship, that has won 1 World Cup. They won 1 World Cup in 1966, and ironically, it was 2 years later that Italy wins their first European Championship in 1968. So the times in which both of these nations were at the peak of their powers for the first time happened at the same time. And for a country like England that, again, they finally take the lead in the first 2 minutes, the fastest goal ever scored at the European Championship. Luke Shaw one-times it with his opposite foot. And you've got England that was on this magical journey, was on this magical run. And then again, in a penalty shootout, they come up short. The tragedy is, this has been the history of England international soccer for years. You look at their latest heartaches in shootouts, where they've lost in shootouts specifically for major tournaments. 1990, 1996, 1998, 2004, 2006, and 2012. And obviously 1996 was the European Championship semifinals against Germany, where it was their manager, Gareth Southgate, that missed a crucial PK that lost them the semifinals. And England just has such passionate fan bases for soccer specifically. It almost goes overboard because you've got these fan bases called hooligans, hooligan fan bases that literally are designed, and especially this is prominent and prevalent at the club level, at the English Premier League level, where you've got these fan bases whose sole purpose is to fight other fan bases, hooligan groups. That's what they do. They don't show up to the games. They technically wear and sport their team's apparel and attire. And they just go fight and beat the crap out of other hooligan groups from other teams in different locations in Northern England or just in England in general. They've got a rabid fan base when it comes to soccer. And for them to come up short again in this fashion, it is just brutal. And I truly feel badly for them for coming up short again. Because, again, at Wembley Stadium, it's in London. Wembley Stadium is in London. And, again, not to take anything away because Italy deserved to win. They played a tremendous game. They had a tremendous tournament. And soccer is just as revered in Italy as it is in England. And Italy created history as well, but it just would have been extra special if England could have somehow found a way to pull through. And it's just a true travesty. And it was just devastating to see them lose in this fashion. I think that England you can swallow losing in regulation. It's much tougher to swallow losing if you're England in another penalty shootout. That is just heartbreaking for me. Transitioning to the Copa America, because not only was there a European Championship, but there was a South American soccer championship on display as well. Saturday night, Argentina against Brazil, Lionel Messi, Neymar Jr., and Argentina was able to prevail 1-0. They won the Copa America for the 15th time, which actually ties Uruguay for the record for the most Copa America titles with 15. And to me, what's really special, it's so funny how in sports, whenever we analyze the greatest players, we never measure them on purely their stats or purely their individual accomplishments, MVPs, defensive players. It's all a matter of how many majors, titles, championships have you won. And this even applies to complete team sports. It's not just in basketball where we look at a guy like LeBron and say, okay, how many rings do you have? Or we're looking at Chris Paul and Giannis Antetokounmpo and saying these guys need a ring to solidify their greatness. These are two future Hall of Famers who both need a ring to validate their greatness, to solidify and cement their status as a legitimate Hall of Famer and to elevate their status among the all-time greats. Tom Brady's got 7 rings. Is he a better thrower of the football than Aaron Rodgers? Most people don't necessarily think so, but why is he viewed as better than Aaron Rodgers or better than Joe Montana? Because he's got more rings. Clayton Kershaw, he was without a World Series title. So people were kind of diminishing some of his greatness because it was all in the regular season, hadn't achieved and hadn't gotten any postseason hardware to show for it. And even in, again, sports that rely so much on the collective, so much on the team, that is soccer. You've got 11 men on the pitch. When we look at Lionel Messi, the only thing that people could ever turn to and say and use as ammo and fodder for criticism is that, well, he's never won anything at the international level. Now, Argentina's never won a Copa America with Lionel Messi. Oh, they've never won the World Cup with Lionel Messi. But getting Argentina to multiple semifinals, getting Argentina to finals appearances didn't matter for anything for Lionel Messi. This is a guy who's won the Ballon d'Or 6 times. He's been the top scorer in the Champions League 6 times. This guy has scored. He was the leading scorer in the World Cup in 2014. He was the FIFA Player of the Year in 2009. He was the player of just the best winner in 2019. He was 6 times the top scorer in La Liga in the Ballon d'Or. This is a guy who's a 3-time UEFA Player of the Year, 6 times voted the best player in La Liga, 6 times won the European Golden Shoe. How many more accolades can we heap onto him before we decide to anoint this guy as a great player? He was already viewed as one of the greatest players of all time, if not the greatest to have ever played, is Lionel Messi. But people wanted to see, do you have any silver hardware at the international level? And that's what makes this so happy for me, because people just kept holding him to one standard. And they're holding it against him because he couldn't carry 10 other guys, or because certain guys missed penalty kicks or missed open shots, that it was his fault for all their shortcomings, all their previous shortcomings. Because what happens is you have a guy who's born in a country in Argentina that has such a decorated, such an illustrious history of players. You've won the World Cup twice. You've got Diego Maradona, who helped lead Argentina to that World Cup, to obviously multiple Copa America titles. So that's the standard that we look at Messi and we compare him to, which is totally fair. But at the same time, you have to look at the individual achievements and understand and appreciate what you're watching. I've seen Lionel Messi play in person in Barcelona. He is the quickest. He's the fastest soccer player I've ever seen with the ball. The guy's in a small space of 10 feet with 3 guys around him, and he can make 3 jump cuts, not even touching the ball, just around the ball. And my head's already flustered. Where's this guy going? I already am freaked out by this guy's sheer size, and he's 5'8". Maybe he's shorter. Maybe he's 5'6". Could be 5'8", 5'6". I'm not sure. But he packs a punch, and I just love the way that he plays. And so, again, the only reason why people were criticizing him at all, the only thing you could say about him, he had no off-the-field issues, none whatsoever. The only thing that people could turn to, well, he's never won anything at the international level. Well, it's a good consolation prize to win the Copa America. Obviously, it's not the World Cup, but I'm extremely happy to see that Lionel Messi finally got a chance to display his greatness and to win at that high level. So congrats to him, and congrats to Argentina on winning Copa America. Finally, final topic before my Malkin's moments. This just eats at me. I hate to start off my Monday in such a good mood too, with just frustrating, more so than anything, news. USA team basketball lost to Nigeria in an exhibition game over the weekend, 90-87. And again, I don't typically overreact to exhibition games. I like to evaluate games of real consequence and real meaning. So I don't want to overblow this. I don't want this to be overblown. But I just want to put into perspective what just happened a couple days ago. You have a team in the United States, men's basketball team, that has won the gold cup at the Olympics. They've won the gold medal. I don't know why I said the gold cup. They've won the gold medal at the Olympics 15 times. 15 times. including 3 straight 2016, 2012, and 2008. And then coming into this game, the Americans were 54-2 in exhibition games since they started playing with actual pros in 1992. So you've won 15 gold medals. You're 54-2. And just 9 years ago, you beat Nigeria by 83 points at the London Olympics. 9 years ago, you beat them by 83 points. And 5 years ago, you beat them in an exhibition game by 43 points. Just 5 years ago. Nigeria, for some perspective, to put this into perspective, currently has 7 NBA players. Pretty impressive, right? Pretty impressive. Only 5 of them played a couple days ago. And it is impressive, especially when you hear who those NBA players are. Precious Achiuwa, the Miami Heat. Everyone knows him. He's a big guy. Gabe Vincent of the Miami Heat. KZ Okpala of the Miami Heat. Josh Okogie of the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Chimezie Metu of the Sacramento Kings. I didn't even mention Jahlil Okafor of the Detroit Pistons wasn't playing. He's on the team. Congrats to him. And then Jordan Nwora, who plays for the Milwaukee Bucks, is not with them either. That's who they lost to. Those are the 5 NBA guys on Nigeria that Team USA lost to. Team USA has a starting lineup, features a starting lineup of 5 All-NBA guys this year. KD, Dame, Bradley Beal, Bam Adebayo, and who's the last one? Jason Tatum. And you have this Nigerian team make 23 pointers against this squad and Greg Popovich. That's 47%. 23 pointers. They shot 47% on threes. Now, again, I don't want to overreact to this loss. This is an exhibition loss. And international basketball is all about developing team chemistry and developing a cohesive unit, playing together. It's not about individuals. It's not about disparate parts doing their own thing, which is why Nigeria had so much success, because they played like a team. And credit to Mike Brown, the assistant coach of the Golden State Warriors. He's the head coach of Nigeria. Great job by him drawing up a game plan defensively. That's what he's known for. That's his background, his defense. And Nigeria played extremely hard on the defensive side of the ball. But if you're the U.S., listen, I'm still going to give you time. This is the first exhibition game. They've only they only had 4 days to practice together prior to this. I'm going to give Coach Pop and his team, I'm going to give his players an opportunity to assimilate and to get comfortable playing with one another. But man, was this disappointing and frustrating and upsetting. Quite frankly, it's embarrassing. I don't want to totally discredit Nigeria, but at the same time, not a single guy on Nigeria that played would have even made the 3rd team roster for Team USA. Not the first group, not the second, not even probably the 3rd group. And it's just unfathomable to me. Thank goodness this wasn't at the Olympics. Man, would that be unbelievable? Because listen, the U.S. just relied so much on ISO ball. There wasn't as much ball movement. It was, hey, KD, hey, Dame, go take and make a good shot for me. And they did a little bit down the stretch, but the other guys couldn't really do it. And to be honest, they didn't shoot the 3 ball quite as well. They still shot 41%. But Nigeria just played like a better team. And it's just a bit upsetting. It's just a bit upsetting that even without the practice time, you look at the talent on that court and you can't figure out a way to win. That's just unbelievable to me. It's just unbelievable to me. Anyway, Coach Pop has his work cut out for him, no question about it. He and his coaching staff have their work cut out for them, because that's not a good sign. I'm not going to say it's a harbinger for what's to come. It's just an exhibition. But you lose to Nigeria. Okay. Final topic, Malkin's moments. Got a couple great Malkin's moments for you. First, the Tampa. So this is funny. So we know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl back in February, and Tom Brady famously tossed the Lombardi over the boat. So apparently the Tampa Bay dive team is prepared. Tampa Bay Lightning decided to copy Tom Brady, and the Stanley Cup goes over. They are prepared to swim and dive and go get it. Big shout out to the Tampa dive team. Big shout out to Novak Djokovic, winning his 20th Grand Slam, 6th at Wimbledon, tying Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal for the most Grand Slams of all time. A huge, huge accomplishment. Big shout out to Ash Barty for winning her first ever Wimbledon title, her second major for the Australian player who is seeded number 1 in the world. Big shout out to her. And actually, Maria Cicak, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing or butchering her name. She became the first female chair umpire for the men's final for Djokovic and Berrettini at the tournament in Wimbledon since its genesis in 1877 at Wimbledon, and she became the first female chair umpire for that. Garrett Cole shut out the Houston Astros a couple nights ago on Saturday night, pitching a shutout, recording 12 strikeouts. He even had a pretty passionate and spirited conversation with Aaron Boone, trying to get him off the mound early in the game. He said, "The hell with that. I'm staying in there." He threw a 99-mile-per-hour fastball on his 129th pitch to pitch that strikeout. The Dodgers scored 22 runs against the Diamondbacks. They won 22-1 a couple days ago. Albert Pujols hit his 675th home run of his career. He's climbing up that ladder. He's been unbelievable. Final two, Lucas Glover wins the John Deere Classic, winning his first PGA Tour championship in just over 10 years. Incredible accomplishment. That's his 4th PGA Tour victory of his career at now with this John Deere Classic. And finally, this is just a tremendously heartwarming story. Logan Howard, a Colorado high school pitcher out of Rocky Mountain Lutheran, returned to the baseball mound to pitch for the first time since he suffered a stroke at a young age that paralyzed him on his entire left side of his body. They weren't sure if he'd be able to ever play again. They weren't sure if he'd be able to ever walk again. And he took to the mound this year and pitched for his high school team. And it was very cool that the San Francisco Giants allowed him to make their first round pick this year. The MLB draft took place yesterday. He got to make that selection. So a lot of great moments, beautiful moments as always. Thank you so much for listening. That's all the time that I got for today right here on Morning Joe on Facebook Live, Twitter, and on YouTube every Monday and Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Make sure to review, like, subscribe my page on YouTube, Morning Joe with Jonah Malkin. Follow me at that same tagline on Twitter. And as always, have a lovely rest of your morning.